Hi, my name's Larry Richardson, your step-by-step chef. In this edition, we're going to make one of my favorite seafood entrees. It's baked stuffed scallops. Now, this can be a kind of intimidating dish to many people, but it shouldn't be. It's amazingly easy to make. So come on, let's cook. And here are the ingredients for our baked stuffed scallops. First of all, I have 2 cups of bay scallops. If you can only get sea scallops, then just take them and cut them up into pieces about the size of bay scallops. Just give them a nice chopping. I have 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to use a tablespoon of rosemary, a tablespoon of oregano, and about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of parsley. And I'm going to mince these very fine. Now, if you don't have access to the fresh herbs this time of year, then you can use a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of Italian seasoning, this dried Italian seasoning. Just don't go overboard on it because this stuff is very potent. So I would really actually recommend you only add a tablespoon the first time you make this, and then you can add a little bit more if you want when you make it in the future. We're also going to use a teaspoon of ground black pepper, a teaspoon of salt. I have bread that I've already toasted, and I toasted it as brown as possible, just short of where it would start to burn. I have 2 slices of hearty wheat bread and 2 slices of farmhouse white bread. Now, I like to use these 2 different breads because they have very different tastes. This is a very hearty wheat taste, and it almost has a slight bitterness to it, which the sweet white bread counters, and it makes just a delicious breadcrumb for this dish. I also am going to finely chop 2 celery sticks, and I'm going to finely chop a 1/4 cup of sweet onion, and then I'm going to crush 3 garlic cloves. There we go. And if you don't have a crusher, you can just mince the garlic. And if you don't like garlic at all, don't add this. You can have this as an option. So really, this is what we're going to work with. And like I told you before, this is a very easy recipe, even though it doesn't look like it. So just follow me the step-by-step way. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll chop up our vegetables. Now, this is a large glass bowl. This is the bowl I'm actually going to bake the scallops in, and it is an oven-safe bowl. So get an oven-safe bowl, or if you have a pan that you can line with aluminum, just anything safe that you can put this in the oven with that it won't burn, that our baked stuffed scallop won't burn. And I find these glass bowls work best for this dish. And I also like that while it's cooking, I can see the sides and make sure when I check in the oven that it's not burning. Now, while I'm preparing these vegetables and I'm thin slicing the celery, first of all, let me narrate. I did cut them up the spine, cut both stalks up the spine to make it thin, and now I'm just thin slicing the celery. I don't want big chunks of celery in this dish. It's as much a spice as it is an ingredient, and it also does add a little bit of texture to the dish. So back to the bowl. We are going to cook in this bowl, and just make sure that you have something that you can cook it in that is oven safe. And I'm putting the ingredients right into this bowl because I'm going to stir them up before we put them in the oven. And the oven, again, is preheating already at 375. And I have the rack in the oven on the top shelf. And there's the oven. It's ready to roll. It's waiting for me now. Try not to feel the pressure of an expectant oven. And now what I'm going to do is mince our onion. And again, I want a 1/4 cup of onion. And after you make it my way, you're certainly welcome to adjust the ingredients in any way you like. You might like more onion or less onion. That's totally up to you. But taste it this way the first time and then make whatever adjustments you want. I love when people do that. The fun of cooking, which I consider an art, is making each dish your own. Make it your own signature dish. So you're having it my way, and then you just make it your own. I think too many people follow recipes exactly. They produce food they don't really like, and instead of going back in there and going, well, I think I can make this better, they give up. Don't give up. Make it your way. So as you can see, I'm scoring the top of the onion. I'm going to make it very tiny, very minced pieces. This is a really simple process. There we go. And now I'm just cutting down the face of the onion. And I would show you what this looks like from the front, but I'm not left-handed and I'm working around a tripod. So it's a little bit difficult. I'm also the only one, believe it or not, in the studio. I am the person who has to do everything. I even wash the dishes when I'm done. And I actually enjoy that. It gives me a chance to relax. So there is our 1/4 cup of minced onion. Okay, next up we have our parsley. Now the parsley has been rinsed fully. Now if this parsley were really stemmy, and this time of year it's not, I would actually take the leaves off. I don't like a lot of stem in my food. So this one is in good shape, really delicate stems on it, so I can just go right down and mince it. You can see how easy this is. So we want 1/2 cup of parsley, of minced parsley. Now I do like this dish very herby. I hope you do too. Okay, now that end got a little bit stemmy, so I'm throwing that away, getting rid of those stems. There we go. I just like the herbs when they're very gentle. I don't want any surprises. I don't want the herbs to stand out for their texture. I want them to stand out for their flavor. Just giving it a little bit more of a slice. And there we go. There's our parsley. We just rinse off the cutting board. Okay, next up we have our oregano. Now the oregano is in fact very stemmy. It just is. It grows on sticks. So all you do is you grab it like this from the top and just peel it backwards and the leaves will come off. And I recommend that you don't go overboard on the oregano because oregano is a very strong herb and it will take over the dish. So go real gentle, go easy on the oregano, especially your first time through. If you're oregano nut, prove me wrong. You can add as much as you want. But I just find that it's a very pungent herb that will take over a dish if you're not careful. Okay, so we want to end up with a tablespoon of oregano. And again, I'm just mincing it up. I don't want any huge leaves in it. I do love that smell. That aroma of oregano is delicious. Just makes you think Italian food. There's our tablespoon of oregano. And here comes our rosemary. And the rosemary, I am going to take off these stems. They're a little bit woody. You can see the brown in the stems. And it's just easier to slice. Now up at this end, it's very gentle, so very tender, so I can take it off like this. Now the one thing I want to caution you against is you may be tempted to add sage or thyme to this dish, and I find that once you add sage or thyme to it, you're getting into Thanksgiving territory, and I really don't want this dish to taste like scallops with turkey stuffing. So I would really stick with the parsley, oregano, and rosemary for this dish. They're kind of just a gentler taste. They don't stand out too extreme. They don't compete with each other. But to me, if you add the sage or the thyme, they will defeat the purpose of these other herbs that we're adding. So again, we're shooting for a tablespoon of chopped rosemary. And make sure you do chop this a little bit fine because rosemary leaves can be almost like pine needles. So you just want to make sure that it's just the tiniest of pieces. texture does matter in this dish. So I'm just giving it a second run through with my knife. There we go. And that's our tablespoon of rosemary. And now what we're going to do is crush our garlic straight into the bowl. Now if you don't have a garlic crusher, you can just mince the garlic. Just make it a really fine mince. And then you can even whack it with the side of a butter knife just to release a little bit more of the oil. But I just find that these crushers work best for me. It's taking the paper right off of the garlic clove. And again, the garlic, it's totally optional. If you or someone in your house just despises garlic, which is very sad actually, then don't, I'm just kidding, then don't add garlic. I am a garlic nut, and yet even I find that 3 cloves of crushed garlic is plenty. I would not add any more of this, again, because I don't want people to eat these baked stuffed scallops and go, wow, that's a one garlicky dish. It's just another spice. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll add our teaspoon of salt. And our teaspoon of black pepper. That should do it. Going to set this back here. Make sure your cutting board's nice and dry. And we're going to make our breadcrumbs. Now, when you're working with the bread, make sure that it has cooled down from when you toasted it before you start to make the crumbs. If you have a food processor, it is easier to do this. You just throw them in, it spins around. You can even add some of the other ingredients. It just spins it around and you end up with a nice dry crumb. I'm showing you how to do it without the food processor because I know some people don't have a food processor. And also, I've told you before, I really do enjoy working with food with my hands. So this is no problem at all. Okay, so let's take as much as we've done so far. And I'm just going to finely slice it. Just nice and thin. Make these nice little pieces. It's good that it's falling apart as much as it is, because it's nice to have some of the small bread shards mixed into it, so it's not just like these uniform blocks of bread. And this is going to be mixed in with the melted butter and the scallops. So don't worry if it doesn't look quite like the crunchy breadcrumbs that you're used to, because they're going to get moist anyways. And when they're cooking in the oven, that will dry them out some, especially on the top. Okay, so there's our first batch of breadcrumbs, and then I'm going to cut those other pieces too. This already smells delicious with the herbs and the bread and the onion, and the garlic. Yum. Now another option, if you're a breadcrumb purist, is you could literally take these, put them in the oven for about 3 to 5 minutes, and they will turn drier and crispier. But quite frankly, since I'm adding seafood and melted butter to it, I'm really not that concerned. This dish is fine with a little moisture in the breadcrumbs. So now I have my 3 tablespoons of melted butter. And don't pour it all in at once, kind of work it in as you go. And this is also going to give a little coating to the glass bowl itself. So I'm not worried as much about this sticking to the bowl. So there it is. There's our 3 tablespoons. Get this nice and mixed up, and we're going to do this before we add the scallops. Get it nice and evenly distributed. Just delicious. And now here comes our 2 cups of bay scallops. And those were 2 heaping cups. You don't want to go cheap on the scallops. You don't want people to eat what they think is just stuffing with an occasional scallop. Be generous with the scallops. And if you're in an area where you can get absolutely fresh scallops, not frozen, use those. Oh, they're so good. And they're so sweet. Get that nice and stirred in. Nice and even. Okay, now what I'm going to do is put that in the oven, which again has preheated at 375. I'm going to put it in for 20 minutes, then check it. If I see this looking a little bit crispy, it's done, but it may need 5 more minutes. So let's get started now in the baking process. Okay, so here we are. Our baked stuffed scallops are ready. Now, I did take them out at 20 minutes, and I wasn't satisfied that they were cooked through. I didn't see the nice crisping that we're seeing on the breadcrumbs, so I put them in for another 5 minutes. You may have to do the same. It all depends on your oven. So do check them at 20 minutes, take a little taste, and if you think they need another 5 to 10 minutes, you're more than welcome to put them back in for that time. The main thing is you do want the dish cooked all the way through. So congratulations, look at what you just did. You just made delicious, hearty, baked stuffed scallops. Now this is a delicious dish, and you saw the ingredients. They're very fresh, and it's not too greasy either. Sometimes you get baked stuffed scallops that are very greasy. This is very tasty. You made it yourself. Have pride in it. Now, if you want to see the written recipe for this that you can print, please go to my website, stepbystepchef.com. There you're going to find recipes and videos for dozens of other delicious meals. You're also going to find a cookbook or 2 by the Step by Step Chef. So I'd really like you to visit the site, take a look around, and I'm sure you're going to find more delicious meals just like this. So I'm Larry Richardson. I am your Step by Step Chef, and I'll see you in the next edition.